kind of sales process. So we'll just run through as this goes. Carter's going to kind of jump in here and there. So step number one in the process for us is what we call preparation. So preparation for the sale for us, with our CRM, we have the capacity to jump into Zillow straight from our CRM. So number one thing that the sales guy does right when they get to the office in the morning, or if they're just working straight out of their house in the morning, they'll check their leads on their schedule. First thing they'll do is look at the Zillow. So they'll jump in there, look at what the home has to offer, take a look at windows, doors, siding, roofing, the whole 9 yards, things that maybe we'll have to prepare ourselves to have a conversation with the homeowner before we get there. Just so in our head, we're already thinking, okay, we're gonna have to cut back siding or do this or that. Additionally, when our receptionist, Autumn, sets up the appointment, she's taking notes based on, the questions that she's asking the customer, and with a script that we've provided her to go off of when it comes to asking the questions. So, what kind of windows are in the home? What year is the home? What style of everything? Are you interested in any trim work? Things like that. Basically, the sales guy or gal is just fully preparing themselves for the sale prior to going there, so that we're not showing up blind and talking about, entry doors when they just did their doors. They're looking for windows only, something like that. So that's step number one with preparation. Anything to add to that, Cart?
Nope.
Okay. Step number two is obviously the greeting, right? So we call this step rapport. So when it comes to the rapport building, don't have to get too deep into what rapport building looks like. However, the importance of it, things that we try to, point out right away. Okay, how is the, customer's lawn capped? Is there like a Minnesota Vikings flag out front? Little things like that. Just things that are good talking points for right away when we do the greeting, introduce ourselves, and we can kind of slide softly into why we're actually here. Before that, try to warm them up a little bit. People are going to decide whether they like you or not within like the first 4 seconds. So we try to do a good job at, complimenting something that the homeowner has, whether it's their beautiful home or their, landscaping or their Minnesota Vikings flag out front, something like that. So that's what the greeting or the rapport building looks like. Promptly after that, we'll go ahead, Carter.
When it comes to rapport building too, it's something that we can use later on. So if we can connect with the customer in a way, we can use later on.
Yes, absolutely. And so there's an acronym that we've been trying to get better at using on the sales side as of lately. That acronym is FORD, like the pickup truck, and that stands for Family, Occupation, Recreation, and Dreams. So trying to gather maybe a little bit of information based on those 4 acronyms, so that when we're leaving, we know, yeah, they're a family person. Their dream is to, I don't know, hike Mount Everest, whatever it may be, but little things that we can use with follow-up later. Because a lot of the time in this industry, it is it's not always a one-call close situation. There's a ton of follow-up in this position. So moving right after rapport building, we promptly and smoothly just execute the agenda with the homeowner. So there's a lot of other companies call it something different. We call it an agenda, and we'll tell the homeowner that too. So we'll say, hey, Mr. Smith, just so you guys are tracking, here's a little bit about what's going to happen today. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the house. I'm going to get these measurements. We're going to talk about, all the styles, all the different colors. You're going to show me some problem areas, show me something, show me why you called me out here in the first place. And after that, we'll sit down together at the dinner table. We like to make sure that they know, hey, we want to sit down at the dinner table together. That's where business is done in this industry, we all know. So there's nothing worse than the tailgate estimate where you're outside, out front, customers' tailgates pop down and you're going through numbers with them. You're never going to close that deal. Or if you do, you're super lucky. So we like to just get them thinking right away that we have control and we're going to tell them exactly what we're going to do for the day. And the biggest piece of the agenda is sticking to that agenda. So if I tell a customer, I'm going to measure the windows, and then I'm going to talk to them about product, and then I'm going to sit them down and go through numbers with them. I'm going to do each of those things in that specific order and not veer from it, unless like something crazy comes up. But people like to know what's going on, when it's going on, and they like to be able to stick to that so that they can expect what's next. So that's a little bit about the agenda, if you will. After the agenda, what we like to transition into, and part of the agenda is we're telling the customer that, hey, we want you to show us what's going on, tell us why you called us out here. So this piece of the pie is called what we call the needs assessment, okay? Needs assessment is essentially where we ask the homeowner those qualifying questions, maybe that Autumn, our receptionist, already asked a few of them, but why are we here? What are we doing here? What is it that we're looking at? What are your biggest concerns? If money was no object, what would this place look like? Okay. What we're really trying to gain here is information to use, I don't want to say against them, but use in the power of use to the power of the close when it comes time for the close. So if a homeowner is telling me that, security is a big thing for them, none of their windows lock maybe, or none of them open maybe. And so those are two of their biggest things. They're worried about fires, they're worried about their kids, they're worried about intruders. So later on during the sale, once it comes time to asking for the business and going through product demo, I'm going to hit super hard on the fact that, hey, these windows are perfect for egress, for escaping. So if your kids need to jump out, they can safely. Additionally, we have these extra security night latches on the windows, or they lock in 4 different points, whatever it may be. But we're gathering all this information during the needs assessment to utilize it later down the road. It's not just to build the quote, okay? Now that is maybe 50% of it, but the other 50% is to tailor the close to the homeowner. After the needs assessment, and I should say during it a little bit as well, we are going room to room with the homeowner. We're looking at every product, whether it's windows, doors, whatever it may be. Sometimes we're outside during the needs assessment. Maybe it's a roof and some siding. So it can look different. Perfect scenario, you're inside, you're going room to room. What we'll do at that point as well is we'll start, after gathering all the information on the needs assessment, we'll start building our work order, doing things like that, taking measurements, all the boring stuff. At some point during this, we will release the homeowner, if you will. One of the smooth transition phrases we like to use is, okay, sounds good. Well, hey, now it's all the boring stuff. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through, kind of hyper focus, measure everything up. I want to make sure I don't get anything wrong. And I could probably chit chat with you all day, but why don't you give me about 10, 15 minutes? If I have your permission to go room to room, check everything out, I'll come grab you and I'll meet you at the dinner table when I'm finished. Does that sound fair? And we always get a yes.
And why do we separate the customer?
So the biggest piece, Carter, for separating, the reason that we do it, the idea is to separate ourselves so that we can focus on the actual measuring piece of the pie. You know how easy it is to, overbuild rapport, and you're talking to a customer and you can't stop yapping. And when you're measuring something, you might have, 36 on your tape measure, but you type in 63 on your work order, okay? So there's a lot of room for human error when it comes to, having somebody in your ear yapping about the Vikings game last night when you're trying to focus on, okay, how does this window come out? What comes out? What stays? Things like that. So we try to encourage separating from the homeowner. Great question. So once we get all through the work order, homeowners sitting at the dinner table, maybe they're tinkering around in the kitchen, we'll pop out once we're fully finished and we have a good rough cut of that work order. Now it's not fully finished at this point. Typically that comes at the office or at home later on that evening, just with extra added notes and things like that, because you could spend 30, 40 minutes doing that. Once we get finished for the most part with all of our measurements and important things, we'll call the homeowner over and we'll start our complete sales process, if you will. The first thing in that process is what we like to call our story, okay? This is where we hit on a personal and a professional story, okay? Or I should say personal and business, rather. So the personal story, I like to tell people, okay, well, right out the gate, let me just tell you, besides the weirdos that stand on our windows, what the heck do you know about Window World? And they'll typically say, oh yeah, my cousin got some, or that's about it. I see the commercials, I see the cute kid, shout out to Carter for having that one for us. So we
Well, we got 30, I'm gonna start with maximum time.
Yeah, no worries. We good? Awesome. So story, back to the story, business and personal. So typically what this looks like is sitting the homeowner down, hey, besides X, what do you know about us? And the homeowner will typically give us a few things and we'll say, that's great. So let me just tell you a little bit about Window World, and a little bit more about me too, because you want to know who the hell you're buying windows from, right? Kind of ha-ha, chuckle. So right away, everybody has their own personal story. Mine was always pretty darn quick. Mine was, hey man, I started here, about 5 years ago as a sales guy. Done a little bit of installs, worked my way up. I've had 17 different hats at Window World, so I know the company in and out. Definitely really close personal friends with Carter and Mel, and then that's how I kind of transitioned right into the business side. And I run into Window World and a little bit about us in Fargo, which, okay, I'm sure you've heard of Window World. Nationwide, we have this many stores, we sell this many windows a year, we donate this much money. But the nice thing about Window World Fargo is we kind of we go by the beat of our own drum. And what we mean by that is, yeah, we're nationally known, but we're locally owned, okay, locally owned and operated. Carter and Mel started this thing from scratch. I give them a sob story about moving out here from Wisconsin, starting it up. So that's a little bit what I mean by the story. People like to get the warm and fuzzies about a company they're working with, especially here in the Midwest. Small business is huge. So being able to have a customer feel comfortable enough to go with a company that has that small vibe, but also has the backing of a major corporation, and also not trying to encourage the fact that we're too small, like we don't know what the hell's going on. There's that perfect fine line that you want to toe with these people in the Midwest here. I think we do a pretty good job of that. Okay, so after the story, we get a little bit into the product demo. So I'm sure I'll share these with you guys at some point, but we have these little booklets we call our sales Bibles. It's a sales folder. Essentially what it has in it is just it's a corporate provided like pamphlets, okay, that essentially just have a little bit of information about our windows, doors, siding, roofing, whatever you may want. And then a bunch of junk about Window World too. Talks about warranties, talks about how many reasons why you should go with Window World. There's a lot of stuff in there that we use. And then there's a lot of stuff in there that we joke around about and say, okay, well, you're not really going to care much about this, but it's a really great tool though. So we call it our little sales Bible. In there, we're going through not only like our lifetime warranty, which is huge, a lot of time is spent on that. We're also talking about our next level service department, our certified installers. We're talking about everything as a company, and then we dive into the product as well. We tend not to, in Fargo, we tend not to spend too much time on product. So we found that it'll bore them to death when it comes to talking about like argon gas and low E. But we do spend a lot of time talking about the installation. That comes around the time when we're doing our needs assessment and our walkthrough with the customer, when we're talking about how we're going to do things, yada, yada. So we do touch a little bit on product, and also all the other, items that we have to offer in that sales Bible. And that's what I call.
Is that where you would go through like the specific products that they're going to be using? So like the big front window, you could have 15 different styles of windows. Is that where you talk about that?
So I kind of skipped over that a little bit. So when we're talking about the needs assessment, when we're going through room to room doing the work order, so right away, yeah, thanks for catching that, Carter. So been out of the game a little bit. So when we're going room to room and we're checking everything, what we like to do is that's at the point where we're talking about, hey, what's your dream? What styles are you interested in? What colors? So when we're doing that needs assessment, like I said, about 50% of it is, we're going to use that to build the estimate. The other 50% is used to tailor those things directly back to them for the close.
So when you're talking product, you're specifically saying double pane versus triple pane.
Yes, correct.
How things operate.
Exactly. So that's what I'm talking about when I say product demo. We're mostly talking about, we've already decided that they want casements and that they want full trim work and they want exterior wraps. When it comes to the point of sitting down at the dinner table, we already have all that information. So what we're doing then is we're just clarifying exactly, hey, your casements are going to have, this is how they're going to hinge. They're going to have a foam insulated frame, 3 panes of glass, Energy Star rated. That's where we get into the meat and potatoes, where sometimes it's a little boring, but depending on the audience, right? The biggest thing for the sales guys I always coach is be a chameleon. If somebody's really locked in at that piece of the presentation, milk it for everything it's worth. If they're doing this or looking around, let's glaze through it real quick. Okay, yeah, it's going to be a white vinyl window, man. Let's do business, Some people really care and some people don't give a shit at all, right? Okay, so once we've done our full demo, I'm sweating like a pig out here, dude. Yeah, no, it's just so hot here. So once we do our full product demo, at this point, once we're completely finished with that, The design consultants, they'll build their estimate on the iPad. Okay, so we have tablets that they build the estimates on, and they build that based on whatever the work order is telling them. And they're the ones that wrote this work order based on what the homeowner told them, right? So we build the estimate. Once we get there, we get to the magical point of presenting price. So once we present price, we'll do a full run through of the agreement. So we'll go through every single item that they're looking to, or that we're going to be doing, or every piece of the pie that we're going to be putting into their home. And we don't spend too much time on little things like, for example, some retrofit style windows. There's a lot of extra little added pieces that go into the agreement that we could spend time talking about a lot. But what we do is we talk about that at the point of the needs assessment more than we do when we're presenting the price to the homeowner and going through the agreement. The reason for that is, if I have all this leading up to, I'm about to tell you that your agreement is 25.5, and I'm going through what an exterior trim stop is again and how we use it, and it just tends to check people out over with our experience. So what we do, we typically will say, okay, Mr. Homeowner, so we've got the 12 double hungs on there. We've got all your exterior trim, so that's going to be that full aluminum cladding on the exterior. We've got the full white trim work on the interior, right? Versus saying, hey, we've got the jam, 125 feet of casing. It's all going to be painted white, and that's $4 a foot. You see what I mean? So we try to glaze through those things quickly, and then we hit them with the price. When we hit them with the price, it's something that's brief, it rolls off the tongue, and it rolls immediately into the 3 easy ways to pay power statement, which is where we say, now, for $25.5, that's our full project, fully installed with a lifetime warranty. Now, what we have to offer are 3 different easy ways to pay, okay? Number 1 being our 50/50 option. We offer a 50% down upon agreement, and then another 50% down upon installation once everything's done to your satisfaction, okay? Now, the second option that a lot of people are taking advantage of is our 0% interest monthly payment plan, which is an awesome deal. It goes for 18 months long. Today, that would set you at about $362 a month, okay? But by far our most popular plan that most customers are taking advantage of is our easy low payment monthly payment plan, okay? And today, to work that out, we can get your payments down to as low as $108 a month for the entire project. So what option best suits your needs or best fits your needs, right? Typically the homeowner will say something like, well, we'll probably pay cash, or we'll probably end up doing the financing route, to which we respond with, awesome. Let's say they say financing. What we typically say is, awesome. So all I need from you today is just a driver's license real quick. So let's go ahead and get that application started, and then we'll dive into the meat and potatoes of the details here in a minute. Does that sound fair? We'll try to get that ID from them immediately so we can fill out a portion of the financing application for them. Or if they say they'll probably end up paying cash, we'll hit them with the statement of, great, that sounds awesome. Are you thinking you're going to do a credit card today, or would you like to write a check? So we'll try to encourage the close immediately with rolling into, great, that sounds fine, here's the next step. Great, that sounds fine, here's the next step. Obviously, it doesn't work as perfect as that every single time. So that would be like our ideal, no resistance. And that little piece right there is what we call the trial close. Sorry. Okay, so after the presentation of the price, what we'll try to, obviously encourage is that little piece where we talk about, okay, well, which one best fits your needs, or which one do you see yourself going with? That's what we call the trial close. And when we get I'm going to probably end up doing the financing or whatever it is, and we get their credit card, when we get their identification card, their ID, or whatever it is, that's where we call that the trial close. Okay, we haven't for sure gotten like a, yes, let's move forward, let's do this thing today. But what we did get is a soft commitment. They gave us their ID. We're going to fill out some financing. They're going to go with us, right? So that's what we call the trial close. And then once we get them approved, we get everything agreed upon down to the nitty gritty when it comes to like, hey, you need to remove your own blinds, you need to do all this junk. Then that's the point where we call the actual close, okay? And after the close, there's just one more smooth piece. We call it the button up, where we talk a little bit more about what install will look like. We remind them of a couple things maybe that we, don't want to touch on right before they sign the agreement. Like, hey, also make sure to do your smoke detectors in here if we need a permit for this, or whatever it may be, little things that they're going to be more apt to saying, oh yeah, no problem, because they've already got the agreement signed, right? So that's what we call the button up. Now, in most cases, you don't get no resistance, right? If we did, every single person in the world would be a sales guy. But for the most part, we're getting resistance after we go to the presenting price, which is when we get into, instead of the trial close with asking for, a credit card or excuse me, you get resistance after you ask for a credit card or after you ask for a check or whatever it is. When you get the resistance, we call that next step the sales closing sequence, okay? This could look a million different ways. And essentially what this is in layman's terms, we just try to put a fancy name on it. But the sales closing sequence is just going over all of your objections, okay? So if the homeowner hits you with, I need time to think about it, okay? You go through your objection for that. Or if the homeowner, it's just too much money, or the other guys are going to do it cheaper, or whatever it may be. You need to talk to my husband, need to talk to Jesus, talk to my neighbor, talk to whatever. Yeah, got to pray on it. That's a big one here in the Midwest. So whatever the objection may be, what we encourage is the sales closing sequence. So we'll do objection training every single month, and we'll tackle all the toughest objections. We'll throw a football around and we'll go through them every single month. And what this does is it just helps kind of keep us fresh with going through that when we do get resistance, which actually, Cart, right now I'm building a big objection list. Yeah, master list.
For flashcards?
Yeah, for the flashcards. Yeah, exactly. So, and then after the closing sequence, best case scenario, okay, you kind of have two branches that you can go off of from there. Number one is the follow-up branch, which you didn't win the business, didn't get the deal. Or number two, the more ideal route is you used your sales closing sequence effectively and you got the deal. So then you go into the trial close one more time, you go into the close, and then we fall into the button up one more time. So it all kind of branches together at the end of the day. Obviously, typically 80% of the time we're getting resistance, 90% of the time we're getting resistance when we're asking for the business. But that other 10% of the time, those laydowns are always the best. So that is pretty much it.
You want to quickly summarize the follow-up process. And we have,
Yes.
We have a spreadsheet that we're using now, but we know we can improve this process.
For sure.
As far as operationally,
yes.
What we're doing works. We're working on a rehash program right now too.
Yep.
We're building out essentially what Cash does within Go High Level.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So
yep. Let's talk with Braden about that.
Leads. But as far as the immediate follow-up, when we talk follow-up, that's the salesman's job is to call the customer, and then from there, if it doesn't close, it goes to a rehash later, which is a program that I'm more, working on. Yep. But Corey, if you want to jump into the follow-up, immediate follow-up.
For sure. So, and I can share with you guys our template and what we're using right now. It's something that I built that's I was using it when I was a sales guy before anybody was managing us. And so I was just using it personally. I've shared that with the team now. It's very, very simple and it seems to work. But yes, like Carter said, we definitely need to, everything can be improved. But essentially what it looks like for us, okay, immediately following leaving the customer's home, we always shoot out a thank you text if the job didn't close, okay? That thank you text looks something like, hey, Mr. Homeowner, thanks again for letting me come by. Really appreciate the opportunity to earn business with you. Wanted to shoot you over my personal cell phone number, so when you talk to the wife tonight or talk to your husband tonight, that you'll have my line directly so that we can follow up. Does that sound fair? Sometimes we'll get a text back, sometimes not. The next day, right away, depending on the objection, especially if it was I need to talk to my wife or I need to talk to my preacher or whatever, we'll immediately give a phone call the next morning. Okay, so right around 9 a.m. the next morning, we'll do a phone call. If we don't get in touch with anybody, we will leave a voicemail and then we'll shoot a follow-up text immediately after that. Hey Bob, just left you a voicemail. Eric with Window World here. Wanted to shoot you a text one more time too, just in case you're a texter and not a caller. Feel free to reach out to me today at any time if you have any questions. After that, we do loosen the reins a little bit, and then we're following up with them every 3 days when it comes to talking on the phone. Now, most of the time, customers are texting us back, and this is an everyday thing. They've got questions every day, and if we're in the loop with them answering a bunch of questions one day, we'll always call back the next day if that conversation never got anywhere. But the way that the spreadsheet is laid out is it prompts you to call the customer at certain points each day. And we have a little notes section where you can write notes in there like, daughter's name was Grace, dog's name was Skippy, they're going on vacation on the 12th through the 14th, so don't call, things like that. So that's where that Ford comes in handy, Carter, that we were talking about. So the follow-up log itself is designed for calling the customer or texting the customer, whatever is their preferred method, at least every 3 days until the 30-day period. After the 30-day period, we pretty much let off the gas. We'll maybe shoot out a text once weekly until we get an actual no. But also in the follow-up log, it does prompt you to just completely let go of the reins. If you get a no, dude, we're not going with you. Sorry, not going to happen. We'll always try to get a reason why, hey, just so we can get better. That's like our signature line. Just so we can get better as design consultants or as a company. Can I ask you why you decided to go with so-and-so, or why you're not doing the project till the fall, or whatever it may be, just to try to see, maybe there's another objection out there that we don't know how to overcome yet. So we try to coach on that. But for the most part, follow-ups are done almost every day with customers, depending on their contact back with us. But if we have no contact, it's typically every 3 days.
And we'll share that sequence. And then, I guess last thing, just to clarify, we are building out. So after that 30 days, it'll go then into the rehash program, which we're currently building out on both Apple with text, email, essentially copying what Hatch does.
Yeah.
I think that's everything. I mean, that's a quick overview.
Yes.
Mike, if you want to dig into this, let us know where you need more clarification or where you should start. Let us know. And I think that's a good start. Thanks, Cody.
Boom. Thanks, guys.